Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And in this video, I wanted to do a network update for you guys. I went around town yesterday, about 3-4 hours I spent, and I was looking for network upgrades, new site ads, macros, and perhaps small cells. I wasn't expecting anything big. It was just a while since I've been out and about. So yesterday I went 3 to 4 hours and I went, seeking and searching for new stuff that may interest me. So to start it off, I already know AT&T is not as active in this market. I think that's a scenario now in many more areas. So this is mainly becoming a Verizon, T-Mobile territory in terms of actual work happening with new site ads, millimeter wave, N41 layovers. They seem to be the most active at this point in time. I am hearing that AT&T is set to get started in roughly the second half of this year, around summer. That's when we'll see more activity from AT&T here. But for now, it seems to be a Verizon and T-Mobile in terms of activity in this market. So I went downtown, east side, northeast, west side to just check the area. I haven't been on the west side in a while, and I know T-Mobile has not been as active in the N41 layovers, which is the Sprint spectrum that they acquired last year when it closed, the 2.5. And to my surprise, they were, for a Saturday, and I posted some of those pictures on Twitter, so make sure to follow my Twitter for more updates and interactions. To my surprise, they were in progress on 5 sites. They had tower crews at the sites. 5 of them were getting N41 layovers simultaneously. So there was 2 separate crews. So one here is locally owned, one Vertical Communications, and then the other one is Tilson. Tilson is more widely known. They're all over the East Coast, and they have an office here about 40 minutes from El Paso. So it seems, again, T-Mobile has a large market share in El Paso. About half of the market is on their network. So they have everything engineered and all their ducks lined in a row here. They have it looks like the equipment was able to meet the demand. The tower crews have been funded. The contracts are big. And I was speaking with a couple of them at the sites, and it looks like they are set to finish the completion end of spring, early summer. That's when they will touch all sites 100% in El Paso. That also includes the last remaining sites that still need the N71 layover. Some of these one-touch upgrades are now starting more frequently. So they're going to a site that's band 12 and that has no N41 or any of the newer equipment, and that site is now being completely modernized. So it's getting 71, 41, it's getting FDD, massive MIMO with newer modernized panels. Of course, newer radios, the dual 5G LTE radios are going up on the sites. So they're now doing that all in one touch. And it's good to see. It just makes sense, in my opinion. If you ask me, it makes sense. So they're doing that. T-Mobile is very, very heavily involved in doing that. You could say that $10 billion that Verizon is spending over the next 3 years into C-band, you could say T-Mobile is doing the same with their $12 billion. I know that $12 billion is still, some of that is going to the N71 as well, because there's a cost involved in that panel. It's very big. I'm sure some of you have seen it, and it's expensive. It's not cheap. So some of that cost is going towards that as well. But just remember, in 2017, 18, 19, and beyond, there have already been multi-year investments into the Band 71, N71 layovers. So there's that portion of the upgrade is not as intensive anymore as the N41 is. N41 in large is still being rolled out much more at scale versus N71 because there's already been ongoing work for years now. And they're about, I would say about 75–80% complete with the N71, and they're just adding the final touches to the market to get it to all the sites. And there are some sites still, I got to call it how I see it. There are some sites that are only midband still. It's very, very few. I can count them on one hand, but there are some sites that never even received band 12. So will some of those sites get 71? I'm sure they will. But that's something that T-Mobile is working through scaling to finally, once and for all, touch the entire market with all of its spectrum. And that's part of the initial $12 billion that they're spending this year and next year. So there's, like I said, there's a $24 billion pot that T-Mobile is pulling from currently, which is all being funded into their existing grid. So starting in May, that will also include the Sprint Keep sites. The Sprint Keep sites will start receiving T-Mobile equipment. And I'm also hearing, again, this is just very small. Again, it's harder to see this at scale because it'll take some time. But I'm also hearing now that the N41 layovers sites are getting backup generators as well. That's an additional investment in that as well. Is that happening more frequently at scale? Not yet, but it's being brought to my attention that this is happening more and more. I have seen it as well. I've seen it on some sites. So it is happening, but it's just not happening at a massive scale. So that's the first part I kind of wanted to speak of. T-Mobile is picking up again in my market, and I do believe when they say late spring, early summer, they'll be fully done with the layovers. And then from that point on, we'll see what they do. We'll see if maybe the capacity is sufficient where they can leave it alone for a couple of years. We don't know. So I'll definitely be tracking that for you. So next, I went into, of course, testing Verizon. And Verizon is very interesting because their approach is different. Here we they did buy 160 megahertz of C-band, and they also own 40 megahertz of the CBRS. So I went across town and I drove up close to some sites, and I'm trying to see if they're maybe adding some CBRS onto the macros, because I know it's a very small panel and you kind of have to be up close to see it. And I've seen pictures of the equipment, so I am familiarized with what it looks like, and I have yet to see it on a macro. Now, has the grid necessarily slowed down significantly? Even after Verizon initiated the One Fiber upgrade, which is adding their own backhaul and fiber to these sites, yes, I got to call it how I see it. They have slowed down significantly, and that goes right in line with what RootMetrics is reporting. Here, Verizon went up from an average of 44 down to 28. That's a massive drop in speed, I'd say. Is that due to DSS? Is that due to data growth? Are more people on the network? We can speculate about that. A lot of you will agree that it's DSS. I don't have a factual document to show that, but nonetheless, they have slowed down, and that's just a fact. Now, what have I seen from Verizon? So I went to 4 locations to track permitting for new sites. So those 4 sites have not yet been built. They've been in the permit log since 2019, and they have not yet been built. I'm anticipating if they can't build most of them this year, they'll likely get to those next year. They have a couple of sites that they partially built, I would say. So the pole for the site is up, and the equipment and the cabinets have been added, but the actual panels and radios have not yet gone on the actual site. So they're still going to have to finish those as well. I don't know. Maybe they have that scheduled for Q2, Q3. Who knows? I'll definitely be tracking of that. Now, what I've spotted myself, and what is very interesting to me, is small cells. And it's a very, very big factor in this next generation of networks. And that's something that T-Mobile is just not discussing, and they're not bringing a lot of attention to it. But it's something that Verizon is doing, and that's what makes them unique, I think. And they're completely taken a different approach on the network build. Is this in large part due to millimeter wave? Maybe, because you have to have that densification to bring the equipment closer to the user equipment. And that's where small cells come into play. So I'm spotting small cells all over the east side of town. So it looks like to me, strategically being rolled out, they're picking apart each side of town. So it's not a scattered rollout. It's more of, okay, we're going to attack this side, then we're going to work our way through this side of town, and then we'll go to the west side of town. That's the vibes that I'm getting from this rollout, because it is very one-sided at this point. I have yet to spot any small cells on my side of town or the west side. There are mainly filling in the east side. What am I spotting on those? It's a mixture. So it's small cells that are LTE 5G, and then there are some where it's millimeter wave only, literally. And there's a lot of them. It's not just 5, it's not just 10. There's a lot. I would say, and trust me, I haven't spotted them all. This will be, for me as a network enthusiast, this will be the hardest track down of equipment I will ever go through. The macros are easier to spot because they're taller, they stand out. You can see, okay, there's a co-location, especially if you're familiarized with the equipment and you know where to look for it. These small cell rollouts are going dead smack into neighborhoods that I've never even been in. So I have to go on the map, cover a certain area, drive through it literally just to spot these small cells. And that's exactly what Verizon's doing. They're placing them dead smack in the middle of neighborhoods. Like these nodes are going in front of somebody's house on the sidewalk. They're putting them dead smack on the sidewalk, and it looks like a light that would go there. But Verizon, of course, they had to add their own twist to it and replace the pole and make it look nice. So it looks nice in my opinion, but you are able to see that it's different. It definitely stands out versus what was there probably previously. So what does this do? So just to compare to T-Mobile with their already dense grid on macros, you can't put macros in the middle of neighborhoods. It's very hard to do because it stands out. And you know, the houses are side by side, so there's not a lot of space to put a macro. So in these neighborhoods where Verizon has the small cells, and it's not just one, there are several around the whole neighborhood. Verizon has millimeter wave within, I would say, 1,000 to 1,500 feet. I think that's a fair assessment. Most people are reporting the same. And then beyond that, there's some kind of LTE on these as well. It's not CBRS, but it still maintains a strong 5-bar signal. Whereas T-Mobile in these neighborhoods, even with a dense macro grid, is dropping down to 1 to 2 bars. And speeds are so-so. So this is where these small cells really come into play. And Verizon is, I don't want to say Verizon is on some next level stuff, but these small cells are a difference maker in a lot of ways. And T-Mobile will have to adjust to that eventually, because that's exactly how AT&T is also going to deploy their C-RAN, to offload macros and bring the user equipment closer to the user, so it makes it a much better top of the line experience. So again, I don't want to ramble on too much. I did drop a speed testing video, a brief one. It doesn't really equal to the 3 to 4 hours that I put in, but I just wanted to briefly talk about this and kind of give you guys my take. And there will be more of this coming definitely in the future as I track more. T-Mobile, again, is ramping up big time. So I'll be keeping my eye out on them. And these small cells are very interesting, and it seems that there is no slowdown of this in this market from Verizon anytime soon. In fact, I think they ramp it up as we get into Q2, Q3, Q4, just based on the fact they have no access to that C-band until the end of 23. So they have to combat any future congestion due to data growth in the network. They got no choice. And then, of course, they also want to start selling a home fixed wireless product here. So that's the way they achieve it. They densify the neighborhoods, and now the millimeter wave will be accessible to the people in those neighborhoods. So again, just a video, kind of give you my take on network updates here. And I anticipate these networks to be more at scale in much bigger markets, of course. So let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below. If you have been on the channel or you're new to the channel and you have not yet liked, shared, subscribed, make sure you do so. Hit the notification bell so you are notified when I do upload content. Make sure to follow the social media outlets for more updates and interactions. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.